Hello, friends. This is Chandrakant from Akulmach Technologies and graciously invite you this morning on Blain Live. And let me also invite my friend from UK, Mr. Jeremy Blain.
Thank you very much, CK. Again, great to be back for our final hurrah of 2020.
Absolutely. Before the end of the season, I think this is our last session in 2020, and we would like to talk about the business outlook for 2021. So, with this discussion, we want to end our series for this year, only to pick up next year.
Yes, exactly.
Uh, Jeremy, there has been a lot of speculation: what will work, what will not work, what are the new avenues, how business will reshape. I think there has been a lot of speculation. For instance, there is an Indian electric vehicle manufacturers, which is a startup here in my city in India. They have announced that they want to launch a three-wheel car, and they've already got, within just 2 weeks, they got 3,000 bookings, mostly from United
Wow.
States. I think this is one of the example of what will happen. You can manufacture in India, but your clientels are in the US, and the car is completely solar. And their punchline is that you never have to charge your vehicle. So what,
Yeah, great.
right. So I think what do you think? What will happen? What is your opinion in terms of your understanding from the global scenario?
Well, I, I'm going to put a bit of a positive spin on it, actually, CK, this time, because I see opportunity for 2021. Honestly, I do. Many of us have learned to do things differently through 2020. It's been tough, there's no doubt about it. Many organizations are still on the line between survival and failure. Some have failed, some have found ways through. And we've discovered new ways of working and new possibilities, which were not there before because people hadn't been forced over this precipice of change, which is what we've seen this year. So it's taken a long time to get through this. And while I still think we will live with the pandemic for a while to go yet, even though there is the vaccine to come, that will still be there in the background, but we will start to do things and be more active in moving forward while recognizing that. So with that in mind, organizations will start to look again and look at their 2021 and start to think about where are our possibilities, where are our big plays, how do we reshape strategy so it's a little bit more fluid. We can learn from this year so that we have plan B and potentially plan C in place for next year, and then mobilize our resources behind that in new ways, having learned from what we're doing this year. So I feel that there is a more enlightened and a more positive way forward possible, CK.
I think a lot of corporations and a lot of organizations across the world, some of them basically took some drastic measures, and some of them waited for the good times. But net, I think everyone has a great learning, and my assumption is that whatever people have learned this year in 2020, they will basically make actionable items or actionable events next year. For instance, some of these large companies have already announced that they will be working from home for next 3 years. But then there are so many companies. I think the whole box needs to be opened. The lid needs to be opened for the new action point for the entrepreneurs. So, what do you think are the key learning which people need to implement in 2021?
Well, actually, if I come at that in a different way, and the way that I've looked at it, and the way that I've started to talk to my customers about it when they talk to me about it as well, there are three distinct phases that it looks like that many organizations are going through when they're looking at their 2021 planning. The first is consolidation, the second is reorientation, and the third is build. So consolidate is thinking about at strategic level, where are we on our transformational journey? That could be the macro transformation like digital or workforce, But for many, it's the operational transformation around remote, virtual selling, how we do things differently now, what we keep because it's proved to be a great practice, and what we try and do differently because we've learned from it. So, understanding where they are now is one of the biggest studies that many organizations are doing to inform how strategy is being defined for next year. And that is also including, which I'm really pleased to see, not just the business and the bottom line, but it's starting to include those things that we've talked about of being imperative this year, which is what about our people and what about the communities within which we serve? What do we need to do differently so we're bringing people along with the journey? And that is great to see some leaders starting to having those conversations, a lot more actually than there were coming into 2020. So that's consolidation. The reorientation then is a focus on one of the biggest issues of the past 5 years, which is strategy implementation. So a reorientation from the leadership team to move down a level from where they're looking and start to think about implementation and how we do things. So the discussion has moved in the boardrooms and in executive meeting rooms, be they remote, away from what we need to do to how we need to do things more effectively. Again, looking about how do we look at the plan for our people? How do we continue the journey of more efficient working and productive working? Be it remote working, be it a mix between face-to-face or office-based and remote, and be it going to market in different ways as well. So how have we reorientated our marketing? How is our sales actually evolving so that we can keep some of this good stuff and go to market slightly differently? And what have we learned, and what do we understand of our consumers or customers? How will they continue or choose to buy differently this year? Your example at the very beginning is exactly what we're seeing, is that there are new globalized purchasing patterns emerging because the organizations and buyers are looking beyond their 10-mile radius or 10-kilometer radius from where they live. And they're starting to realize that as a business, they can start to source globally. They can start to look at talent globally, but also they need to start looking cross borders for their business, because for some countries their business may have dried up. So it's a survival issue. So that's the reorientation piece. And then for that reorientation piece, before they move into the build, there's a lot more work that I'm seeing around measurement. So how do we measure the new value in 2021 that is being created, and what we're achieving and how quickly we're achieving it? Then the final stage, which is in the build, is what I'm really pleased to see is that budgets are coming back and being front and center focused on building skills at leadership level, because some leadership have been exposed in this year. And we've talked about this in one of our organizations. There is a narrowing of the gap between the capability of many employees and the capability of the leadership when you consider things like digital, remote working, small group collaboration, online communication, agile working. All of these things are being done in a way that actually is closing a hierarchical gap. So investing in skills for leadership, for the rest of the organization to be able to step up to lead at their level and usher in this new age of empowerment is something that's great to see. And putting the supports in place for a more considered go-to-market plan that we talk about, to make sure you're building and creating early wins from an awareness point of view, making sure that more purchasing opportunities are being considered, and therefore that your chances of conversion are being more. I'm seeing a lot more work on that. So it's great. We're seeing overall this movement from understanding where we are, understanding what we need to do, to much more focus on how we're going to do it and how we're going to do it successfully.
Jeremy, there is one more trend that I have noticed, which is with regard to the gig economy. And, when the times were good, the Salesforce was a leader in the CRM arena. So you have the complete CRM. and they used to basically charge quite a lot of money. They would used to charge something like for a basic monthly subscription, $75 a month, and for a more advanced where lead generation, email campaigns are roped in, it used to be much more. But now, what is happening is to support the gig economy, the Facebook is really taking a lead in this because they have started the ad manager. They are bringing in a lot of other functionality into ad manager. You can generate campaigns. You can do it
Mm.
absolutely free of cost. You can extend the reach within your network and beyond it using simply just the ad manager functionality. So I think there are lots happening in the Facebook arena, and there is a sort of a competition going on between these social media platforms. LinkedIn is not doing
Yeah.
much, although they were much ahead in the race, but they are not adding any applications. They are not adding even the live sessions, which Facebook is quickly embarked and giving competition to YouTube. So, from your point of view, for next year, to support the gig economy or people who wants to get into the opportunity, what they should do in terms of finding new clients, in terms of building their own pipeline and CRMs?
Well, um, I actually think we're moving away from legacy systems and platforms, in fact, and we're looking at a new generation of ecosystems that bring a lot of these things together, particularly for the gig economy. So there's a platform stroke ecosystem, which is not even launched formally yet, coming that I've seen in Denmark called Pro Collective by one of the founders, Nicholas Schroeder, which is bringing together, if you like, the organization enterprise side with a much more formalized approach with the gig economy behind the trend that we've already talked about around this rise of the independent workforce and the need to formalize what has been the informal. But also, I believe that there are problems because you mentioned Facebook, but there are many organizations that simply can't use Facebook. Particularly from a B2B perspective, it's not the right platform potentially for them. Some for B2C and B2E, particularly, yes, Pinterest and others still are there. There's been more movement away from Facebook to Instagram, interestingly, from some even from some B2C, and therefore new elements coming up. And again, and to raise your point about the traditional CRM, there's been reaction in some of the smaller organization giggers and so on against these big platforms because they simply can't afford them. So pricing models are being challenged, not just at big CRM and large platform and enterprise system levels, but even the tools that we've been used to using this year, like Adobe Connect, GoToMeeting, Zoom, all of these things. Pricing has come down because they realize that this rise of the gig economy, you've got one person bands setting up their business or very small collective businesses of 3 or 4 experts. They're not going to be investing that much. They're looking at what they can build together as a web, as an ecosystem that puts this together, gives them easy access to route to market, utilizes tools which are much more efficient for them in going to market. Some that even aren't perfect yet. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example, it's not a perfect tool, but for small businesses and independents, it can really work well at warming up leads, capturing intent, but also sharing insights and then starting to convert into real business conversations. So it sort of depends. So I actually think that 2020 has been almost a resetting year around these, systems, enterprise systems and processes and platforms that we've seen. And we're now seeing the need for integrated ecosystems that bring all sides of this together. So it just becomes much easier, much cheaper, and much more efficient.
You are absolutely right. Even the large companies are trying to see, or trying to see how they can leverage the Facebook or Instagram. I have seen a lot of large corporations also advertising on Instagram lately. So I think the whole ecosystem is changing. The marketing managers are trying new means and new mediums to generate their pipeline, and so there is a lot of training required. There is a lot of orientation required, but even Facebook offers some of this functionality free of cost, it is quite tough to use. It's not user friendly. So training is required in terms of using tools like Ad Manager from Facebook, and also the Navigator by LinkedIn, because LinkedIn Navigator is again a very intuitive tool for the small business, but then it is finding it difficult to leverage to scale up the operations. Um,
Mm.
One of the gaps that I've seen in some of these tools is that the reach is only limited to what you create. So, like for example, Navigator, you have to build your own pipeline, and
Mm.
this is the against the ethos of social media, because the social media help you connect with 10,000 people in with just one message, whereas in Navigator you have to spend more time, bring more people, and then you work on that small group of people. So how it is different from chimp mail, for example? So I think these are the questions that consumer now
Yeah.
are asking for, and these social media platforms have to give answer in 2021. I think the last word I can have from you, last advice, what these media platforms should do to rope in more and more clients and become global leaders.
Very simple answer to that is become more customer orientated. It's customer centricity is absolutely critical for this. And what a lot of these platforms have missed are some of the trends around the growth of the independent workforce, the way the workforce is mixing and shifting, the way organizations need to go to market, the growth of entrepreneurship and small businesses that don't have those same legacy ways and means to go to market and are exploring new ways. So they're not doing enough in going to investigate what their audience actually needs now and how that has evolved. And LinkedIn is a great example of that. It's like I said as well, it's not the perfect tool, but it can be used if you're prepared to put in the work. But there are some simple things that they could do that would make that, I'm sure, a lot more efficient. Although I must say I use it, and I'm used to doing that. I'm happier, in fact, doing it because it doesn't overwhelm me with the traditional way of doing these things where I get 1,000 contacts coming in and I'm having to try and figure out, where's a real lead and where's not, and who I really want and who I really don't. Whereas if I can focus on 20 that I pick myself and warm that up, then I can start small. So there are ways and means. So customer centricity, understanding the true and real emerging needs of the different segments of customers, and then understanding how they deliver that and how they reorientate their own offer goes back to exactly what I said that many organizations are doing. They're consolidating learnings from this year. They're reorientating their offers and businesses to go to market differently. And then they're building the teams behind that and their systems, their supporting structures behind that to fuel and create early wins.
Jeremy, thank you so much for spending the last year with us, giving a lot of advice to our viewers. And I'm sure your advices, your suggestions, and the direction that you have given to the industry help some of our viewers and also beyond the viewership that we have. So, with this positive message, we want to end this year for Jeremy Blain Live. And I wish you, all your team, your family, and your friends a very happy Christmas holidays.
Thank you very much. And all the season's greetings to you, your team, and all of your fantastic audience. CK, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jeremy, and we will catch up next year once again.
We will. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.